one of the big things in development that I think is important to keep an eye on is these reasonably spaced key milestones that show progress and also keep the team focused. And one of the best ones you can do is to actually fly test flight or to get your capability enabled as soon as possible. There's a tendency to want to wait until I get the design exactly the way I want it, so that I only build it once and then I'll fly it. It'll be perfectly and it'll be great. But what that fights against the fly as fast as you can and learn. Right? It's not an easy trade, right? It's easy to say fly as fast as you can, but you're struggling against, you're going to spend money early that's going to compete against refining this design to the final one you want. And we did that. We had a lot of good discussions about that in Constellation, and we still had those in Orion as well. What I found was one of the biggest threats when it was proposed we be canceled is if you're not careful and you just push all the work, you got to, even though you do a lot of affordability measures, if you just squeeze in the budget, the date's going to be so far out here, no one will believe it, and the team loses focus. So we made a choice to do a test flight early, and we made a choice that it did not have all the systems in it that we're going to eventually need. Right, the service module is just a structure, for example, and there's no life support because there's no crew. We also made a choice that we would go recognizing we knew there would have to be some refinements in the design to reduce mass when we had the crew on board. So you're adding some cost, if you think about it, in the future because you're going to redo some things. But by moving faster and taking those risks and some capabilities reduction, we were actually able to build up this whole system, a supplier base, a factory, drawings, making the hard choices on design to get to launch. The excitement it builds in the team, the sense of urgency to be done is a huge lever. And when you actually fly that thing, even though it's not the perfect one you're going to fly people on, you've learned so much, you've reduced so much risk on the downstream flight because you have actually built one. It's hard to calculate that. Everybody wants, well, show me what the value was. You can't. There's a bunch of risks that you no longer have because you built one. There's also, I think, there's definitely a political benefit that you show you're doing something, right? Next, we fly in the fall. We're going to have this flight called Exploration Flight Test 1. It shows that exploration is happening now. Even though we're not putting people on board for several years, the systems are in development and it's happening today. It's not just PowerPoint charts. We actually have a space flight in the fall of this year. The choice we made is that we knew that the big rocket wasn't going to be ready till 2017, so we basically told Lockheed, take this crew module, and I want you to exercise it along these lines. Here's the flight test objectives I want. You go figure out how to do it. They went and bought a rocket, a Delta IV Heavy, and they're going to put this Orion about 3,000 miles into space, which is 10 times higher than space station, so it's pretty far. To be the farthest a manned system has gone since Apollo, and then we'll bring it back into the atmosphere and basically get it very close to lunar entry velocities. So it allows us to test the most safety-critical systems: the structure, the heat shield, the parachutes, and to build those and actually fly them. And there's also the ops team is involved. We've got the MOD guys. There's contingency commands we can send. The Kennedy guys are helping us process. The Navy's going to help us recover. So all the other ops guys that normally could be sitting around for several years, we're actually using them, and we're learning early about how to operate this vehicle. So you make a choice. Fly something early. It's not the perfect design yet, but you're going to learn a ton about the design, and you're going to be able to focus the team. You're going to actually learn a bunch about how to, not just the design, but about the processes and even the contract and everything else. And it shows that you're moving forward. And I think for political viability, that's really important. I remember that in station as well because we launched the FGB 2 years before the service module. We knew the service module was late. It was a funding issue with the Russians. They started to pick up again in around 97, but the FGB was done and the node was done. And so in fact, we had put the FGB kind of under a blanket for about 9 months because it was ready almost exactly on time. But we decided to go ahead. The bosses decided that they wanted to go ahead and launch FGB in Node, even though there was 2 years before the service module. And I remember originally thinking, as a technical guy, going, "Wow, that seems kind of wacky. Why do that when we're waiting 2 years for the rest of it? There's some risk the hardware will not perform and it'll re-enter, especially if the gap to the service module is so long. And we're just going to go up there and fix it with a shuttle. Why would we do that?" But it turned out to be a genius move. One, because it says space station has started, right? And we're exercising now, docking with the space station. We're exercising now going inside and operating a space station. The ground guys are exercising working together with Russia. We had some issues, so it was great. We learned how to deal with issues and fly. And so it made going to the service module and the crew a lot easier because we had worked together on an unmanned vehicle for a couple of years. It would have been a lot harder if we'd rolled right into service module in the first crew. So it made sense from a lot of standpoints. So to me, EFT1 is very similar to that. We're moving now. We'll build it, we'll fly it, and we're going to learn a ton.